Alrighty guys, so we are going to go over two lessons today. The first lesson is going to be multiplying and dividing by base 10. This should be page 42 or whatever page number is posted. And we're going to glue this worksheet onto here once we're done. So let's talk a little bit about multiplying or dividing by a base 10. The fun thing is that it's easy, okay? So you don't have to worry too much. So let's look at multiplying by a base 10 first. Okay, so when I look at multiplying by a base 10, if I told you 35 times 1, you would tell me 35. Right? So my answer would just stay as 35. Now here's the kind of fun kind of trick with it if you want to think about it. If I did 35 times 10, so if I did the math, worked it all the way through, I would get 350. Sorry. So notice with 350, what's something I noticed? I noticed the difference is, we added a 0. One way to think about it, it's like I have 35, which is what I started with, but we just moved my decimal over one place. Now remember when we did this earlier, we kind of talked about like, we're moving over a decimal place, it's like adding a 0, or multiplying by a power of 10. So 350 kind of comes from just moving it one space over. Now, if you don't believe me in how I got that answer, it's okay. If I did 35 times 10, we notice we get 350. It checks out. It's almost like we're moving it just one space over. So notice if it's 1, 0, multiplying by 10, we add a 0, we keep moving with it. Now, if I did 35 times 100, it would get me 3,500. Now, notice the only difference between trying to write with a Band-Aid, sorry. If I write 3,500 versus 35, notice it's the two zeros that are different. It's almost as if I'm moving this 1, 2 times and filling in the spaces with 0. The reason I'm showing you this is because when we start doing metric conversions, this technique is super helpful, okay? So again, if you don't trust me, that's okay. Times 35. 5. Placeholder 003. It checks out. And you're going to notice that it works every single time, no matter what. So I do 35 times 1,000, we do the same thing. We move the decimal place over 3 times because it's 3 zeros. So if I moved it 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, that'd be 3,500. Okay, and we'll come back to this example at the very end so that way we can kind of see how it works with our metric conversions. But that's what the difference is between multiplying by a base 10. When I multiply by a power of 10, we either move the decimal place over one space, or if it's a whole number, I can just add a 0. Now with division kind of works in the same way. Now let's wrap this up real quick. So if I'm multiplying anytime by a base 10, all we do is move the decimal to the right however many spaces depending on our power. So we have 3 zeros here, we moved it 3 times. Look at it in our number. We have 1 0 here, we only move it 1 time. So that's the beauty of multiplying by a power of 10. Now let's look at dividing by a base 10. When we're dividing by a base 10, well, 650 divided by 1 just gets me 650. It doesn't change anything. It's just 650. Now when I do 650 divided by 10, I'm going to tell you right now, your answer is going to be 65. So notice when I'm dividing, it kind of looks like it's getting a smaller number. Well, it should be because I'm increasing what I'm dividing by. Now if again you don't believe my work, okay, 10 on the outside, 650 on the inside, it would go into 65 6 times, and it goes into 55 times, and it terminates. Now, notice it's not 650 anymore. It's almost as if we moved the decimal in 1 time to make that 65. So it's kind of interesting how dividing by a power of 10 or a base 10 kind of works out that way. Now remember, base 10 is kind of just like saying 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, so on and so on. Now notice we have 1 decimal space here, so we moved it 1 space over. If I did 650 divided by 100, I'm going to tell you right now, it's 6 5/10. Very interesting. So again, it's just like we were to move my decimal place. Now notice if I have 2 zeros here, all we do is move it 1, 2 times to get 6 5/10. So notice, with the other one, it was kind of easy to look and check with our multiplying, but it's also the same thing here. If we have 1, 2, 3 zeros here, we moved it 3 times. 2 zeros here, we moved it 2 times. 1 0 here, we moved it 1 time. So we notice this pattern continue with division, but what difference is we're moving in the opposite direction. So for example, 650 divided by 1,000 is going to get me 0 and 6,500. You could check on the calculator if you need to. But notice since I have 1, 2, 3 zeros here, we move my decimal 1, 2, 3 times. You could say 0 and 650 thousandths or just 0 and 6,500. They both mean the same thing, right? Same exact thing. Now lastly, even if I did 10,000, okay, that'd be 0 and 65 thousandths. Because remember, I move it 1, 2, 3, 4 times because we have 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. So because of that, we move it 4 times. Fill in any empty spaces with a 0. So you get 65 thousandths, or you can put the 0 at the end and make it 650 10 thousandths, but you don't need to. Either one would be correct. So you can do or that. Now again, it's a trick to help you out, especially when we start doing our metric conversions, because we'll really see it in play. Now again, we divide, we started noticing and moving the decimal to the left. And notice when we divide it by 10, up here, it's kind of like, dividing on, and we're moving that decimal place to the left every single time. Okay? Now, do some of the practice questions, and then we'll move on to metric conversions.